in all circumstances. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Second, just take this. Purport. The word grihesa is significant in this verse. Out of the 4 ashramas, the brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, only a grihastha or householder is allowed to associate with women. Therefore, the grihastha ashram is a kind of license for sense gratification given to the devotee. Prithu Maharaja was special in that although he was given license to remain a householder, and although he possessed immense opulences in his kingdom, he never engaged in sense gratification. This was a special sign that indicated him to be a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee is never attached by sense gratification, and consequently, he is liberated. In material life, a person engages in sense gratification for his own personal satisfaction. But in devotional or liberated life, one aims to satisfy the senses of the Lord. In this verse, Maharaj Prithu is likened to the sun, Arkavat. Sometimes the sun shines on stool, urine, and so many other polluted things. But since the sun is all powerful, it is never affected by the polluted things with which it associates. On the contrary, the sunshine sterilizes and purifies polluted and dirty places. Similarly, a devotee may engage in so many material activities, but because he has no desire for sense gratification, they never affect him. On the contrary, he dovetails all material activities for the service of the Lord. Since a pure devotee knows how to utilize everything for the Lord's service, he is never affected by material activities. Instead, by his transcendental plans, he purifies such activities. This is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam. His aim is to become completely purified in the service of the Lord without being affected by material designations. Very nice. Text 53. Being situated in the liberated position of devotional service, Prithu Maharaja not only performed all fruitive activities, but also begot 5 sons by his wife, Archie. Indeed, all his sons were begotten according to his own desire. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As a householder, Prithu Maharaj had 5 sons by his wife, Archie, and all these sons were begotten as he desired them. They were not born whimsically or by accident. How one can beget children according to one's own desires is practically unknown in the present age, Kali Yuga. In this regard, the secret of success depends on the parents' acceptance of the various purificatory methods known as samskaras. The first samskara, the Garbhodana samskara, or child beginning samskara, is compulsory, especially for the higher castes, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, sex life which is not against religious principles is Krishna himself. And according to religious principles, when one wants to beget a child, he must perform the Garbhodana Samskara before having sex. The mental state of the father and mother before sex will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. A child who is begotten out of lust may not turn out as the parents desire. As stated in the Shastras, Yata Yonir Yata Bijam, Yata Yoni indicates the mother, and Yata Bijam indicates the father. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. It is therefore understood by the words Atma Samatan that both Prithu Maharaja and Archie underwent the Garbhodana purificatory process before begetting children, and thus they begot all their sons according to their desires and purified mental states. Prithu Maharaj did not beget his children out of lust, nor was he nor was he attracted to his wife for sense gratificatory purposes. He begot the children as a grihasta for the future administration of his government all over the world. Okay, so this is an indication of how to engender children. It's not something accidental based on lust. It is something that is planned and performed with full dedication of the Lord. Today, so many people act out of lust and greed and illusion, and their consciousness will be the main factor that determines the quality of the child. But devotees know the science of how to procreate children that become not only peaceful and beneficial children who are devotees, but also children that take responsibilities to make sure that society is functioning in the proper way. So they are engendered by, not by lust, but by the complete dedication to Krishna. So everything depends on the consciousness of the husband and wife at the moment of copulation. If they're both thinking of Krishna and praying to the Lord, they will be able to have saintly children who will be very beneficial for society. Unfortunately, most people, they act out of lust, and therefore the children are not well behaved and just cause a nuisance in society. So it says here that Prithu Maharaj had 5 sons with his wife Archie, and all of these sons were begotten as he desired them. That's very significant. There is a science of how to procreate children, and children that are begotten as desired. These children were not born whimsically or by accident. Oftentimes, people, as men and women, they engage in sex activity, and the wife becomes pregnant, and it's an unwanted pregnancy. And what do? They kill the child by abortion. Every year, there are over 1 million abortions of uh, babies who are unwanted by the mother and father. It's a very sad thing. And what happens to those babies? They're thrown into the garbage pile, or they're burned or whatever. So here, the fundamental question is asked: how can one beget children according to one's own desire? Is practically unknown in the present age, Kali Yuga. In this regard, the secret of success depends on the parents' acceptance of the various purificatory methods known as samskara. The first samskara, the Garbhodana samskara, or child begetting samskara, is compulsory, especially for the higher castes. The Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, sex life. I'm sorry. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, sex life which is not against religious principles is Krishna himself. And according to religious principles, when one wants to beget a child, he must perform the Garbhodana samskara before having sex. The mental state of the father and mother before sex will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. A child who is begotten out of lust may not turn out as the parents desire. As stated in the Shastra, Yata Yonir Yata Bijam. Yata Yoni indicates the mother, and Yata Bijam indicates the father. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. It is therefore understood by the words Atma Samatam that both Prita Maharaj and Archie underwent Garbhodana purificatory process before begetting children, and thus they begot all their sons according to their desires and purified mental states. Prita Maharaj did not beget his children out of lust, nor was he attracted to his wife for sense gratificatory purposes. He begot the children as a grihasta for the future administration of his government all over the world. The importance of how to engender children, good progeny, who will be assets of good governance in the world, is absolutely necessary. Unfortunately, today people have sex out of lust, and the children born are influenced by the lusty desires of the parents. So there is a proper way of engendering children, and there is a wrong way of engendering children. Everything depends on the mental state of the parents as they prepare themselves to have sex. So it says here, if the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. Well, how do you do that? Normally, it's by chanting at least 64 rounds before attempting to have a child. This chanting of 64 rounds is to purify the desire to have a child and purify the consciousness of the parents before they try to procreate. Chanting Hare Krishna without a material benefit, with material desire, but with the desire to serve the Lord, will help a person have good children who will grow up to be devotees. If one just engages in sex like animals, and controlled by their lust and greed, then the children are that'll be placed in the womb of the mother will be non-devotees, will be basically children who cause trouble in society. Unfortunately, the science of beginning babies who are born of lust has become the norm today. People engage in lusty activities, and then they have children that are not able to function as devotees. They are completely overwhelmed by lust. So the consciousness of the mother and father at the moment of conception is very important. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. So, how does someone prepare their mental state before they have sex? Well, it's by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Usually, one should chant at least 64 rounds before one even thinks about having a child. If the mental state of parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. So, the husband and wife should both have be very clean, and be very patient, and chant together at least 64 rounds before they try to have a child. That's the preparation before they have sex. And the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. So if the mental condition after chanting 64 rounds together will definitely be Krishna conscious. It is therefore understood by the words Atma Samadhan that both Prita Maharaj and Archie underwent the Garbhodana purificatory process before begetting children, and thus they begot all their sons according to their desires and purified mental states. Well, how do you get into purified mental state? It's by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prita Maharaj did not beget his children out of lust, nor was he attracted to his wife for sense gratificatory purposes. He begot the children as a grihasta for the future administration of his government all over the world. That means that he was in control of his mind and senses in order to have good children who will become beneficial for a good society. Text 54. After begetting 5 sons named Vijit, Tasva, Dumrakesha, Haryaksha, Dravina, and Vrika, Prita Maharaj continued to rule the planet. He accepted all the qualities of the deities who governed all other planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In each and every planet, there is a predominating deity. It is understood from Bhagavad Gita that in the sun, there is a predominating deity named Vivaswan. Similarly, there is a predominating deity of the moon and of the various planets. Actually, the predominating deities in all the other planets are descendants from the predominating deities of the sun and moon. On this earth planet, there are two Kshatriya dynasties, and one comes from the predominating deity of the sun, and the other from the predominating deity of the moon. These dynasties are called Surya Vamsa and Chandra Vamsa, respectively. When monarchy existed on this planet, the chief member was one of the members of the Surya dynasty or Surya Vamsa, and the subordinate kings belonged to the Chandra Vamsa. However, Maharaj Prithu was so powerful that he could exhibit all the qualities of the predominating deities in other planets. In the modern age, people from Earth have tried to go to the moon, but they have not been able to find anyone there. What to speak of meeting the moon's predominating deity? The Vedic literature, however, repeatedly informs us that the moon is full of highly elevated inhabitants who are counted amongst the demigods. We are therefore always in doubt about what kind of moon adventure the modern scientists of this planet Earth have undertaken. In other words, Prabhupada is in a very nice way saying, I don't think they went to the moon. They're just bluffing. Why? Because the moon is full of highly elevated inhabitants who are counted amongst the demigods. We are therefore always in doubt about what kind of moon adventure the modern scientists of this planet Earth have undertaken. That means that they are just making things up. They never actually went to the moon. They think that the moon is just pockmarked and dusty, and therefore they do not think, and they don't think there's any water on the moon, or very, very less water on the moon, and so forth. That is their speculation, and that proves that they have never really gone to the moon. The moon is a heavenly planet. The inhabitants of the moon are highly evolved personalities. That's why it says here. The Vedic literature, however, repeatedly informs us that the moon is full of highly elevated inhabitants who are counted amongst the demigods. We are therefore always in doubt about what kind of moon adventure the modern scientists of this planet Earth have undertaken. Well, they never have gone to the moon. It's just a hoax. And they have not, they're not actually moon explorers. They have never actually gone to the moon. And by the way, it's just like on the Earth, if you want to go from one country to another, well, normally you would have to have some kind of,
visa or something.
Visa or something like that to get into that country. You just can't go there and expect to be welcomed. You have to first get a visa and go through different hoops to see if you're qualified to go from one country to another. So it says here, in the modern age, people from Earth have tried to go to the moon, but they have not been able to find anyone there. What to speak of meeting the moon's predominating deity? The Vedic literature, however, repeatedly informs us that the moon is full of highly elevated inhabitants who are counted amongst the demigods. We are therefore always in doubt about what kind of moon adventure the modern scientists of this planet Earth have undertaken. In other words, it's a nice way of Prabhupada saying that I don't believe they went to the moon. but he's saying it in a very nice way. He says, we are always, therefore, in doubt about what kind of moon adventure the modern scientists of this planet Earth have undertaken. And it's a fact. If you go back 60 years ago, there was, so-called moon adventure, and claimed that astronauts from the United States went to the moon. But up until today, they have not gone back. And they always talk about, well, we're going to go back to the moon again. Well, the point is, they didn't go in the first place. The whole thing is a hoax. And because of that, people are able to cheat the society to invest millions and millions of dollars for moon exploration that never actually takes place. Since Maharaj Prithu was a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to their various desires. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj used to please them in all respects by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior. Now that's a real king. He used to please the Praja, or the members of the society, in all respects by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior. Purport. As will be explained in the next verse, Prithu Maharaja used to please all the kinds of citizens by his extraordinary capacity to understand the mentality of others. Indeed, his dealings were so perfect that every one of the citizens was very much satisfied and lived in complete peace. The word Achudatmaka is significant in this verse, for Maharaj Prithu used to rule this planet as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knew that he was the representative of the Lord and that the Lord's creation must be protected intelligently. Atheists cannot understand the purpose behind the creation. Although this material world is condemned when it is compared to the spiritual world, there is still some purpose behind it. Modern scientists and philosophers cannot understand that purpose, nor do they believe in the existence of a creator. They try to establish everything by their so-called scientific research, but they do not center anything around the Supreme Creator. A devotee, however, can understand the purpose of the creation, which is to give facilities to the living entities who want to lord it over material nature. The ruler of this planet should therefore know that all the inhabitants, especially human beings, have come to this material world for sense enjoyment. It is therefore the duty of the ruler to satisfy them in their sense enjoyment, as well as to elevate them to Krishna consciousness, so that they all can ultimately return home back to Godhood. The leaders today are not taught like that. They're just taught to have war. They love to have war, just like it's going on now. It's nonsense. With this idea in mind, the king or government head should rule the world. In this way, everyone will be satisfied. How can this be accomplished? There are many examples like Prithu Maharaja, and the history of his regency on this planet is elaborately described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Even in this fallen age, if the rulers, governors, and presidents take advantage of Prithu Maharaja's example, there will certainly be a reign of peace and prosperity throughout the world. Well, we need to have people who are qualified to regulate and organize society. But unfortunately today, most rulers are low-class people. And that's why there is always war, famine, sickness, etc. It's very unfortunate. If the rulers, governors, and presidents take advantage of Prithu Maharaja's example, there will certainly be a reign of peace. Rain, not rain like water, but rain. Organized society, reign of peace and prosperity throughout the world. Text 56. Maharaj Prithu became as celebrated a king as Soma Raja, the king of the moon. He was also powerful and exacting, just like the sun god, who distributes heat and light and at the same time exacts all the planetary waters. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Maharaj Prithu is compared to the kings of the moon and sun. The king of the moon and the king of the sun serve as examples of how the Lord desires the universe to be ruled. The sun distributes heat and light, and at the same time exacts water from all planets. Well, when it says, and at the same time exacts water from all planets, it means that the planetary, let's say, leaders are able to take water from all planets. The moon is very pleasing at night, and when one becomes fatigued after a day's labor in the sun, he can enjoy the moonshine. Like the sun god, Prithu Maharaja distributed his heat and light to give protection to his kingdom. For without heat and light, no one can exist. Similarly, Prithu Maharaja exacted taxes and gave such strong orders to the citizens and government that no one had the power to disobey him. On the other hand, he pleased everyone, just like the moonshine. Both the sun and the moon have particular influences by which they maintain order in the universe. And modern scientists and philosophers should become familiar with the Supreme Lord's perfect plan for universal maintenance. Well, there is a perfect plan. I mean, most people think there's no plan at all, and they manufacture nonsense plans. But there is a perfect plan for universal maintenance. It's called Krishna consciousness. By acting for the benefit of all living entities by serving Krishna with love and devotion. That's the plan. It should be the plan, but unfortunately, for many people, it is not the perfect plan for universal maintenance. Text 57. Maharaj Prithu was so strong and powerful that no one could disobey his orders any more than one could conquer fire itself. He was so strong that he was compared to Indra, the king of heaven, whose power is insuperable. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was also as tolerant as the earth, and in fulfilling various desires of human society, he was like heaven itself. Well, it'd be a great benediction to be alive in the kingdom of Maharaj Prithu. Purport: it is the duty of a king to give protection to the citizens and to fulfill their desires at the same time. The citizens must obey the laws of the state. Maharaja Prithu maintained all the standards of good government, and he was so invincible that no one could disobey his orders any more than a person could stop heat and light emanating from a fire. He was so strong and powerful that he was compared to the king of heaven, Indra. In this age, modern scientists have been experimenting with nuclear weapons, and in a former age, they used to release brahmastras. But all these brahmastras and nuclear weapons are insignificant compared to the thunderbolt of the king of heaven. When Indra releases a thunderbolt, even the biggest hills and mountains crack. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was as tolerant as the earth itself, and he fulfilled all the desires of his citizens, just like torrents of rain from the sky. Without rainfall, it is not possible to fulfill one's various desires on this planet. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.14, Parjanya Anasambhava, food grains are produced only because rain falls from the sky. And without grains, no one on the earth can be satisfied. Consequently, an unlimited distribution of mercy is compared to the water falling from the clouds. Maharaj Prithu distributed his mercy incessantly, much like rainfall. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was softer than a rose and harder than a thunderbolt. In this way, he ruled over his kingdom. Yeah, just like when a cat has a mouse in its mouth, that means that the mouse is finished. But the cat sometimes has his baby cat in his mouth. That means the baby cat is being protected. It's the same mouth, but one is for death and the other is for protection. So Maharaj Prithu distributed his mercy incessantly, much like rainfall. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was softer than a rose flower and harder than a thunderbolt. In this way, he ruled over his kingdom. Well, that's a real king. He doesn't misuse his power, but he acts according to the necessities of the moment for the benefit of the society. Just like a judge, sometimes a judge will reward someone for their, let's say, good behavior. And other times, the judge may put someone in jail for their bad behavior. So, in both ways, he is acting for the benefit of society. Okay, so text 58. Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaj Prithu used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depths. And he was like Meru, the king of hills, in the fixity of his purpose. Wow, that's big statements here. Uh, well, the sea has tremendous, let's say, depths. It can go down to, let's say, 3, 4, 5 plus miles. And so this Prita Maharaj's ability to satisfy everyone was like the sea in that no one could understand his depths. In other words, how far merciful he could be. And he was like Meru, the king of hills, in the fixity of his purpose. In other words, no one could change his ability to correctly uh, correctly manage the kingdom. And if there was anyone who was engaging in sinful activities, he would search them out and kill them. That should be the real, let's say, Vaishnava who protects the residents of the society and seeks out unholy persons who will contaminate the society. Purport, text 58. Maharaj Prithu used to distribute his mercy to suffering humanity, and it was like rainfall after excessive heat. The ocean is wide and expansive, and it is very difficult to measure its length and breadth. Similarly, Prithu Maharaja was so deep and grave that no one could fathom his purposes. The hill known as Meru is fixed in the universe as a universal pivot. In other words, everything is going around Mount Meru. The hill known as Meru is fixed in the universe as a universal pivot, and no one can move it an inch from its position. Similarly, no one could ever dissuade Maharaj Prithu when he was determined. Wow, well, that means very, very regulated person. Maharaj Prithu's intelligence and education were exactly like that of Yamaraja, the superintendent of death. His opulence was comparable to the Himalaya mountains, where all valuable jewels and metals are stocked. He possessed great riches like Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, and no one could reveal his secrets, for they were like the demigod Varunas. Purport: Yamaraja or Dharmaraja, as the superintendent of death, has to judge the criminal living entities who have committed sinful activities throughout their lives. Consequently, Yamaraja is expected to be most expert in judicial matters. Prita Maharaja was also highly learned and exceedingly exact in delivering his judgment upon the citizens. No one could excel him in opulence any more than estimate the stock of minerals and jewels in the Himalaya mountains. That means that he had unlimited wealth. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he is compared to Kubera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets. Nor could anyone discover the secrets of his life any more than learn the secrets of Varuna, the demigod presiding over the water, the night, and the western sky. Varuna is omniscient, meaning he knows everything. And since he punishes sins, he is prayed to for forgiveness. He is also the sender of disease and is often associated with Mitra and Indra. Well, Varuna is someone that you should not be on the wrong side of. That would be a big mistake. Okay, text number 60. In his bodily strength and in the strength of his senses, Maharaj Prithu was as strong as the wind, which can go anywhere and everywhere. As far as his intolerance was concerned, he was just like the all-powerful Rudra expansion of Lord Shiva or Sada Shiva. Well, he's softer than a rose and harder than a thunderbolt. That was his, let's say, culture. Text 61. In his bodily beauty, he was just like Cupid. And in his thoughtfulness, he was like a lion. In his affection, he was just like Swayambhu Ramana. And in his ability to control, he was like Lord Brahma. That means he's a very exceptional person. He is both very gentle and it's also, when necessary, very, very autocratic. Text 62. In his personal behavior, Prithu Maharaj exhibited all good qualities. And in spiritual knowledge, he was exactly like Brihaspati. In self-control, he was like the supreme personality of Godhead himself. As far as his devotional service was concerned, he was a great follower of devotees who were attached to cow protection and the rendering of all service to the spiritual master and Brahmins. Wow, that should be our life. Attached to cow protection. Well, that's what we're doing. We're protecting our cows. We're not killing them and eating them. We make sure that they will be peaceful right up to the moment of death. And because of that, we have what's called natural opulence. Krishna will help us in every way because he loves cows. He goes out to pasture with cows every day and spends the whole day with the cows, playing and feeding them and enjoying life with them. And then he brings them back home at night. So if someone is eating steaks and hamburgers and things like that, they will ultimately experience the wrath of Krishna because Krishna loves cows and he protects cows. So follow the leader. If you don't follow the leader, you're going to suffer. And that's exactly what's happening today. And suffering means war and pestilence and all kinds of bad weather, etc. We should understand that these things happen because we're engaging in sinful activities. And the most sinful activities is killing cows and eating them. Just imagine, Krishna loves cows and protects them. And so many people eat cows and kill cows and eat them. Now we understand why there's so much suffering in society. So here he says, it says here, as far as his devotional service was concerned, he was a great, this is Prithu Maharaj, he was a great follower of devotees who were attached to cow protection and the rendering of all service to the spiritual master and the Brahmins. He was perfect in his shyness and in his gentle behavior, And when he engaged in some philanthropic activity, he worked as if he were working for his own personal self. So he treated everyone in this kingdom like his own praja, like his own child. And he was always kind and gentle in his behavior. And above all, he was attached to cow protection and the rendering of all service to the spiritual master and the brahmanas. He was perfect in his shyness and in his gentle behavior. And when he engaged in some philanthropic activity, that is, some activity for money, and then offering money to unfortunate persons or for qualified persons, he worked as if he were working for his own personal self. Purport. When Lord Chaitanya talked to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Lord honored him as the incarnation of Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the chief priest of the heavenly kingdom, and he is a follower of the philosophy known as Brahmavada or Mayavada. Brihaspati is also a great logician. Yeah, a logician means that he understands logic, how to organize society, etc. It appears from this statement that Maharaj Prithu, although a great devotee, constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord, could defeat all kinds of impersonalists and Mayavadis by his profound knowledge of Vedic scriptures. We should learn from Maharaj Prithu that a Vaishnava or devotee must not only be fixed in the service of the Lord, but, if required, must be prepared to argue with the impersonalist Mayavadis with all logic and philosophy and defeat their contention that the absolute truth is impersonal. Well, we as devotees in Krishna consciousness do not believe that the absolute truth is impersonal. And to prove that, we are worshiping deities of Radha and Krishna, or Radha and Krishna, or other forms of the Lord. That means that we're personalists. We're not Mayavadis or impersonalists. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ideal self-controller or brahmachari. When Krishna was elected to be president of the Rajasuya Yagya, performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, grandfather Bhismadeva praised Lord Krishna as the greatest brahmachari. Because grandfather Bhismadeva was a brahmachari, he was quite fit to distinguish a brahmachari from a vyabhichari. Although Prithu Maharaj was a householder and father of 5 children, he was still considered to be most controlled. In other words, like a brahmachari. Because he would only have sex to procreate children. And then he would spend his time making sure the children would grow up to be good persons, good devotees. One who begets Krishna conscious children for the benefit of humanity is actually a brahmachari. One who simply begets children like cats and dogs is not a proper father. The word brahmachari also refers to one who acts on the platform of Brahman or devotional service. The platform of Brahman is a platform of genuine devotional service for the benefit of all living entities. In the impersonal Brahman conception, there is no activity. Yet, when one performs activities in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is to be known as brahmachari. Thus, Prithu Maharaj was an ideal brahmachari and grihastha simultaneously. Vishvak Senan Varstisu. refers to those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Other devotees must follow in their footsteps. Srila Narottam Dasa Thakur said, E Chaya Gosani Yandra Muni Tandra Dasa. He is prepared to become the disciple of anyone who follows in the footsteps of the six Goswamis. Also, like all Vaishnavas, Maharaj Prithu was devoted to, guess what? Not car protection, not house protection, but cow protection. He was devoted to cow protection, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmanas. Just see how important cow protection is. And nobody gets it in this modern society. Instead of protecting the cows, they eat the cows. That's like the worst thing a person can do, to kill and eat a cow. But Maharaj, but Prithu Maharaj, the ideal leader of society, protected cows like his own praja, or his own family members. Prithu Maharaj was also very humble, meek, and gentle, and whenever he performed any philanthropic work or welfare activity for the general public, he would labor exactly as if he were tending to his own personal necessities. In other words, his philanthropic activities were not for the sake of show, but were performed out of personal feeling and commitment. All philanthropic activities should be thus performed. Yeah, we should follow Prithu Maharaj because his philanthropic activities were not for the sake of show, but were performed out of personal feeling and commitment. Wow. That's so important statement. Yeah. Out of personal feeling and commitment to help people. All philanthropic activities should be thus performed. Text 63. Throughout the whole universe, in the higher and lower and middle planetary systems, Prithu Maharaj's reputation was loudly declared, and all ladies and saintly persons heard his glories, which were as sweet as the glories of Lord Ramachandra. Well, that was really sweet. That's really like super sweet. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the words Strinam and Rama are significant. It is the practice amongst ladies to hear and enjoy the praises of certain heroes. From this verse, it appears that Prithu Maharaj's reputation was so great that ladies all over the universe would hear of it with great pleasure. At the same time, his glories were heard all over the universe by the devotees, and they were as pleasing as Lord Ramachandra's glories. Lord Ramachandra's kingdom is still existing, and recently there was a political party in India named the Rama Rajya Party, which wanted to establish a kingdom resembling the kingdom of Rama. Unfortunately, modern politicians want the kingdom of Rama without Rama. Unfortunately, the modern politicians want the kingdom of Rama without Rama himself. Although they have banished the idea of God consciousness, they still expect to establish the kingdom of Rama. Such a proposal is rejected by devotees. Prithu Maharaj's reputation was heard by saintly persons because he exactly represented Lord Ramachandra, the ideal king. Wow.
Harivilas.
Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the fourth canto, chapter 2nd, 4th canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaja's Meeting with the four Kumaras. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is the end of Canto 4, Chapter 22, verse 63, which is the last verse of this chapter. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the fourth canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaja's Meeting with the Four Kumaras. Haribol. Our takeaway today is the following. Like all Vaishnavas, Maharaj Prithu was devoted to cow protection, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmanas. Prithu Maharaj was also very humble, meek, and gentle, and whenever he performed any philanthropic work or welfare activity for the general public, he would labor exactly as if he were tending to his own personal necessities. In other words, his philanthropic activities were not for the sake of show, but were performed out of personal feeling and commitment. All philanthropic activities should be thus performed. With feeling and commitment to helping people who are less fortunate in life. Okay, well, I think we're going to stop right there. And our takeaway. What is our takeaway today? E Chaya Gosani Yandra Muni Tandra Dasan. Narottam Das Thakur would say this. He is prepared to become the disciple of anyone who follows in the footsteps of the six Goswamis. E Chaya Gosani Yandra Muni Tandra Dasa. Gosani means anyone who is a pure devotee, and he becomes the dasa, the servant of such a person. Therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur said, E Chaya Gosani Yandra Muni Tandra Dasa. He is prepared to become the disciple of anyone who follows in the footsteps of the six Goswamis. Haribol. Like all Vaishnavas, Maharaj Prithu was devoted to cow protection, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmanas. So those are the three categories of society that should be given special attention. Cows, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmanas. Prithu Maharaj was also very humble, meek, and gentle, and whenever he performed any philanthropic work or welfare activity for the general public, he would labor exactly as if he were tending to his own personal necessities. In other words, his philanthropic activities were not for the sake of show, but were performed out of personal feeling and commitment. All philanthropic activities should be thus performed.
Very good.
Yeah, there's so many people suffering in the world today. And a genuine devotee engaged in philanthropic activities is not for the sake of making a show, but performed out of personal feeling and commitment. And see, people are not stupid. Even a person who's completely completely poor and destitute, he can recognize who is genuinely trying to help him and who is just doing it for show in order to get fame and a good reputation. There's a saying, do a good deed and throw it into the ocean. if the cow, if the if the uh, if the uh, if the fish don't see it, God will see it.
Oh.
So we shouldn't want to toot our horn about how I did this, I did that, I. We should be very humble and meek, but work very diligently in helping people become Krishna conscious. Okay, so our takeaway. Unfortunately, modern politicians want the kingdom of Rama without Rama himself. Although they have banished the idea of God consciousness, they still expect to establish the kingdom of Rama, or Ram Raja. Such a proposal is rejected by devotees. Prithu Maharaj's reputation was heard by saintly persons because he exactly represented Lord Ramachandra, the ideal king. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the 4 Kumaras. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll stop there. Are there any questions? Any questions or comments that anyone would like to make? Don't hesitate, but be proactive to ask questions. Does anybody have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
So Prithu Maharaj has all the great qualities, obviously, because he is Krishna conscious, right? Yeah. So was he born Krishna conscious, or was he trained to be Krishna conscious? Was he born?
Both.
Both. Okay.
He was born in a exalted family, and he was trained.
Trained.
Yeah, by following the instructions of one of 5 brahmanas.
And he was
a brahmachari also.
Yeah.
You know, he had control of his senses.
Yeah.
He was trained like that.
And he's compared to Supreme Personality of Godhead with respect to controlling his senses.
Yes.
That's amazing.
He was both an ideal brahmachari and grihastha simultaneously. That's a great statement. He's both a brahmachari and a grihastha. So that means he is completely self-controlled. He doesn't engage in any sense gratification. But yet, he's still married and maintains his wife and children, and he considers everyone in the kingdom as his children and treats them with the same respect and desire to protect them. That's why it says Prithu Maharaj was an ideal brahmachari and grihastha simultaneously. That means that he would only have sex to procreate children and nothing else. Visvaksenavartisu refers to those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Other devotees must follow in their footsteps. Srila Narottam Das Thakur said, E Chaya Gosani Yandra Munitandra Dasa. He is prepared to become the disciple of anyone who follows in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. Very nice. Any other nice statement here? Also, like all Vaishnavas, Maharaj Prithu was devoted to cow protection, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmins. You see how much respect is given to cow protection. Yeah. If cows are not protected, the society will not be protected also. And there will be war and pestilence and all kinds of problems in the society. So, what's going on now? There is war going on now.
Mhm.
Why? Because people don't engage in cow protection. Instead of protecting the cows, they're eating the cows. See how dangerous society is today. They do the complete opposite of what they should do. If cow protection is the culture of a society, that society will be successful in all endeavors. But if a society kills and eats cows, it's going to be cursed. It's going to be, because it's very sinful. Krishna was a cowherd boy. He protected cows. He never killed them and ate them. So therefore, we should follow Krishna's example.
Mhm.
Maharaj Pritha was devoted to cow protection, spiritual masters, and qualified brahmanas. Pritha Maharaj was also very humble, meek, and gentle. And whenever he performed any philanthropic work or welfare activity for the general public, he would labor exactly as if he were tending to his own personal necessities. In other words, his philanthropic activities were not for the sake of show, but were performed out of personal feeling and commitment. All philanthropic activities should be thus performed. Very nice statement. Okay, well, we'll end this Canto 4, Chapter 22, and the last verse, 63. Throughout the whole universe, in the higher, lower, and middle planetary systems, Pritha Maharaj's reputation was loudly declared, and all ladies and saintly persons heard his glories, which were as sweet as the glories of Lord Ramachandra purport. In this verse, the word Srinam and Ram are significant. It is the practice amongst ladies to hear and enjoy the praises of certain heroes. From this verse, it appears that Pritha Maharaj's reputation was so great that ladies all over the universe would hear of it with great pleasure. At the same time, his glories were heard all over the universe by the devotees. They were as pleasing as Lord Ramachandra's glories. Lord Ramachandra's kingdom is still existing. And recently, there was a political party in India named the Ramarajya Party, which wanted to establish a kingdom resembling the kingdom of Rama. Oh, that's a good purpose. Unfortunately, the modern politicians want the kingdom of Rama without Rama. Without Rama himself. Although they have banished the idea of God consciousness, they still expect to establish the kingdom of Rama. Such a proposal is rejected by devotees. Pritha Maharaja's reputation was heard by saintly persons because he exactly represented Lord Ramachandra, the ideal king. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the fourth canto, 22nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Pritha Maharaja's Meeting with the Four Kumars. Thank you very much, my devotees, my dear devotees. We'll end there for today and continue tomorrow. Now we know that Prabhupada says the Lord Ramachandra's kingdom is still existing. And recently, there was a political party in India named the Ramarajya Party, which wanted to establish a kingdom resembling the kingdom of Rama. Unfortunately, modern politicians want the kingdom of Rama without Rama himself. Although they have banished the idea of God consciousness, they still expect to establish the kingdom of Brahma. Such a proposal was rejected by devotees. Prita Maharaj's reputation was heard by saintly persons because he exactly represented Lord Ramachandra, the ideal king.
Harivilas.
Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna.
and pray to Lord Rama for the peace and wholesome society, free of war, pestilence, and so forth. However, right now there is war. So, not people don't listen to the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That's why there's war. They are just thinking about their own selfish desires. All wars are for sense gratification. So the Hindus have their way of sense gratification, and the Muslims have their way of sense gratification, but both are fighting because of sense gratification. You cannot say that they are pure devotees. It's not true. Although Mr. Modi is himself a renounced person, but the motives may not be pure. I say may not be. He is a person who respects Brahmanas. He takes the advice of Brahmanas. He is a celebrate person, and he also
Cows.
likes to protect cows and associate with genuine, Brahmanas and Kshatras. But still, he may be making mistakes. What mistakes? Well, not as serious as sense gratifiers, but those are mistakes of, let's say, well, I don't know. I don't know if he's making any mistakes. I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he's making mistakes. He's got a lot of responsibilities, and he's trying to perform them according to his understanding of Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Maharaj.
So let's put it like that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a very good day. It's a nice sunny day today. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.